They stopped publishing the data on this website. Okay. I can't tell you why. But we can see here, what we're looking at is, according to the Social Security Administration, all of these numbers on the left are the total transactions, meaning Arizona had 25,608 new registrants who did not have an ID. 22,918 were matched with the SSA system. 2,699 were not matched. 20 of those requests came up dead. Now, Kansas had 322 that came up as dead. I'll jump to the 1 week in question that had everybody kind of shocked, and that is in Missouri. We have where we get 23,253 attempted new registrants came up dead. Now pause. According to this website, what is HAVV? It says that it's a system where you only submit a request for new voters who do not have a valid license during the registration process. That's what it says on their website. It says that if someone is attempting to register, it goes through the Motor Vehicle Administration of the state. If there's no ID, it then gets sent to the SSA. If the system is being used properly, these are new registrations. However, Missouri said, I believe Missouri said this, that it was voter roll cleanup. So they took existing registrations that are existing profiles for individuals already registered and then asked the SSA to verify, and they came back with 23,000 of them being dead. That could make sense. Texas has also had very, very large numbers with 219,000 attempts, but Texas said this is clearly an error because it's not really happening. I don't know if you know what this is and what's really going on. Maybe it is the states are abusing the SSA and wrongly filing their data, even though they're not supposed to, in an effort to clean up their voter rolls. Is that perhaps what's happening?
Well, what I have read is, like you said, it is whenever there is a request for Social Security verification. So it doesn't mean that it's necessarily a new registration.
Website says it is.
For states like Pennsylvania, it could be for mail-in ballot access, etc. Now, the Texas Secretary of State, because I looked at those numbers and it said 500,000. Well, the Texas SOS says that only 54,000 people have been registered to vote since the beginning of 2024. So those numbers don't square away. And furthermore, it also said for the website that it could be duplicate requests as well. Not just one per person, but it could be the same person over and over.
That's a good point. That could explain a lot of it too. I don't know if it explains it all the way. I will stress, on the SSA website, it says, states must only submit a request for new voters who do not present a valid driver's license during the voter registration process. Perhaps there are duplicates. Perhaps there's activist groups that are going on registering people and someone didn't realize they registered twice.
Sure.
And they're doubling up. Either way, we are seeing massive numbers. I think a valid potential explanation is that states are abusing this as a way to clean up their voter rolls.
Possibly. Well, I will say, and look, I'm not going to be so bold as to say that those numbers out of Pennsylvania, which are very large, are all because of the Amish, but the Amish don't have driver's licenses.
You're really trying to get the Amish to move down here, man. You're really trying to relocate
Well,
them.
I mean,
PA,
I have
already
to
there.
tell you,
Yeah.
I did recently milk a cow. I was invited to an Amish farm and I hand milked a cow at an Amish dairy farm because we're working hard on actually getting the Amish registered to vote. There hasn't been this level of an organized effort to get the Amish registered. Now, why, Scott, am I so focused on this, which sounds so out of the box? Because Joe Biden, and I use this word loosely, won the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania by 80,000 votes. There are 80,000 Amish in Pennsylvania. And these people, they are baby making machines. And if you look up, there's an article out there that by like the year 2025, like the Amish are going to take over because
The future is Amish.
No, I'm serious. And so if we're smart,
great t-shirt.
if we're smart, we would do the same thing as I alluded to earlier that the Democrats do. You focus on a target community that you know, for example, why they have the border wide open. And we would focus on those communities that we know are going to produce lots of babies that we can turn into Republican legal voters.
We have Amish around here as well, and they've got great farms with great food.
Exactly.
The Amish are
Let's get them
everywhere.
registered
We've
to
got to
vote.
activate
Let's
them.
get them registered to vote.
Yeah.
The
and a mail-in ballot.
unstoppable tide of Amish.
The future is going to be Amish because they're having kids.
And let's get
true.
a
The
mail-in
hand that rocks
ballot.
the cradle rules the world.
a mail-in ballot in their hands because number one, their buggies don't go really fast. So we want to make sure that they're getting to election day on time. But number two, get this. When I tell the Amish that they can have a private and secret way to have their vote delivered to them, and then they can privately have their vote delivered, that they don't have to go out in public, that is that's something that the Amish really want. They go, yes, I want to sign up for a mail-in
They
ballot.
want to retain their community, right? Like, they don't necessarily want to have a lot of outside influences.
Well, they don't want the stigma.
Yeah.
There's a stigma associated that, for some people on the earthly kingdom, they shouldn't be voting, even though we're trying to get to the heavenly kingdom. And so when I tell them that they can do it privately, secretly, and think about this. Think about how ironic and comical it would be for a God-fearing, raw milk producing, school choice community that votes by mail, the very thing that the Democrats have been pushing to defeat them. That would be that cherry on top of electing Donald Trump this November.
And the best part about getting the Amish on our side and to vote for us is we could still make fun of them on the podcast, and they'll never know.
They'll never know.
They'll never
can't
know.
listen.
Republicans could just go,
Well, actually, the worst thing is that we praise them over and over again, and they have no idea we are.
That's true.
No, they watch. There are
I
some.
was just kidding. Guys, I've done more for the Amish people than maybe anyone in podcast history.
Mr. Ben,
Everyone agrees.
Everyone agrees.
Ben, if you were watching this show right now, because I've met Ben and I went into his store and he's stacking the shelves and he looks up at me, he goes, "You're Scott Presler. I follow you on X." So some Amish
Oh, no.
Mennonites are watching.
Well,
You just
Mennonites
outed
have
him. You
different-
just outed him.
No. It is a myth that they're not using.
Yeah, they just
technology.
can't own it. They
I
can't
don't know the
own
rules.
it. I think they can't own it. I think they can use it, but I don't know.
Also,
I also
Mennonites
don't know.
are different from Amish, technically, right?
He was an Amish Mennonite.
That's a crossover,
was.
though. I'm not familiar.
Here's the thing: is what if you just dox this guy and he'd be in huge trouble in his community for doing that, but everyone who heard it would also get in trouble if
So
they
they can't
knew.
say
So they
anything.
can't say anything. They're like, I knew he was.
That guy.
Well, there
No.
are,
Now they go and meet, and they're like, "I knew it. You're a fan too."
No, but there are a lot of Benjamins out there. I only said Ben. I didn't say which
I don't
one.
think
There are a
he
lot of
talked to-
Samuels. There are a lot.
Jebediah.
Well, and I think your point that there are a community that is having children is extremely important. Reuters ran this article over the weekend. They sent a reporter to a Trump rally and just specifically talked to the young people that were there, like the 18, 19, 20-year-olds. And they were all saying, there's one guy in the article where he's like, I can't think of anything Trump did wrong, and the economy's really bad. Like, I can't buy a home. How am I going to pay my way for life? How am I going to start a family? Like, the reality is, Democrats could say anything. Corinne Jean-Pierre can come out every day and say jobs are great and the economy is strong. But if you're a young person in America, you are not believing it. You have to pay your bills. You experience the hardship. So you aren't going to say, let's continue this pattern. You're going to want to change. You're going to want to change. And I just think that it's obvious that there are very few things that the Biden campaign can talk about and brag about, right? They can't talk about immigration. They can't talk about the economy. They can't really talk about abortion, even though that's the issue they really want to push. They can't really talk about anything. The environment, like nothing. So it is interesting to see the way American voters are sort of shifting, especially among young people.
They're going right. Mm-hmm. We've had a bunch of polls over there in the beginning of the year that Gen Z is more right wing. And but it has gone back a little bit. I don't know what you're seeing, Scott.
Yeah, well, I'm a millennial. Don't hold it against me. We were the Obama, generation. But as we age, as we get more wise, we are becoming more Republican. But I tell you, these youngins, they are leaning right in a way that I have never seen before with the youth. And I think, again, it's in part because of independent media. It's because God bless Elon Musk. Seriously, God bless him, because we wouldn't have a voice on X, the most powerful platform there is right now, had he not bad it and taken it over and given us more of a platform to reach these people.
And he's also an advocate for having huge families, or at least having a lot of kids.
Yes, natalism. I want every conservative family to have 10 children. I'm serious. I want a lot of Republican babies.
I think that's great. I think that's the thing, though. I think there are a lot of young people who want these things, right? They want to own homes. They want to have a family. They want to be able to pay their bills and have jobs that let them live a comfortable life. And this is not the presidency to give you that, right? In fact, it wants to discourage you from those kinds of dreams and aspirations. And so the only way to sort of turn the tide is to actively walk away from it.
So who's going to win?
President Trump has to. I mean, I don't want to be a doomer. Mm-hmm. I don't want to be the guy to depress anyone. But look, there is no future if we don't elect Donald Trump and give him a Congress that he can actually pass legislation on day number 1 of being inaugurated on January 20th, 2025. There is no future.
I had this, I was putting a skateboard together, and an interesting thing. So when you're putting wheels on a skateboard, you put the bearings in the wheels. In between the bearings is something called a spacer. I'm assuming anybody who works in machinery and works with bearings knows the purpose of a spacer. Skateboarders don't. So growing up, all the skateboarders said you don't need spacers. And then their bearings exploded. Because what spacers do is it balances the lateral pressure. So a bearing, for those that aren't familiar, is 2 rings with ball bearings in between each ring, which allows it to spin. You put those in the wheels, each wheel has 2. There's going to be force from the left and the right as the bearing hits the truck or the screw or the screw or whatever you call it, the nut. And the pressure will cause the inner ring to push inward, and then a harsh landing will cause it to explode. The spacer in the middle balances the pressure so that they don't explode. At some point, someone asked when they were putting a board together, why do I need this? And someone's like, I don't know. And they're like, screw it. They didn't put it in. And they skated and everything seemed fine. And so they ignored it. One day their bearing exploded and it just happened.
They didn't know why. Yeah.
They don't know why. And so they started telling other kids, well, you don't really need those. And then all of a sudden came this trend of everyone abandoning this component because they didn't know what it did. I think about that.
Yeah.
And I'm like, that is more than just a skateboard story.
100%.
It is so much of everything in our culture, in our country, that that we stand on the shoulders of giants to build the things we build. And then one day someone says, I don't know what that's for, and forgets about it. Or it's like you get the extra screw and you're building the furniture and you're like, I don't know what that was for. And then one day the whole thing collapses. I feel like this is what's happening in this country.
That is a great counterexample to bring up when people tell the story or the thought experiment of the monkeys who would get sprayed with the hose.
Oh, yeah. Everyone knows that one,
Because
right?
that whole story, right? But the whole reason people tell it, and there is some truth in it, right? But the whole idea is this is why tradition is kind of silly and people buy into it. But I think
let's tell the story real quick.
Yeah. So basically, there was a group of monkeys, and I don't think it's an actual experiment that happened. It's a thought experiment.
No, I think it did happen.
Do you think it was an actual experiment? I thought it was a story someone made up. But basically,
The monkey hose experiment?
they would put a ladder with a bunch of food at the top, and if a monkey went towards the ladder to try to climb it and eat the food, they'd spray all of the monkeys with hoses. So then if a monkey went towards the ladder, all the other ones would just beat it up so that it wouldn't do that. Eventually, none of the monkeys went towards the ladder. After like the first or second time, none of them went towards the ladder. And then they started phasing the monkeys out over the years. Or months, or however long the experiment took. And so new monkeys would come in, never having known you'd get sprayed with a hose, but they'd go near the ladder, and the other monkeys would beat them up. And so they would also join in when other new monkeys came in and got beat up, just because it was what all the other monkeys were doing. They had no idea that it had anything to do with getting sprayed because you were trying to eat the food. And so eventually in the long run, you had a situation where none of the original monkeys who knew about the hose were in there, but they would still beat up new monkeys who went towards the ladder.
And there was no hose anymore. It may be a fake story. I did a quick Google search. It's like
interesting,
apocryphal or a myth.
Yeah.
But yeah, right. So everyone loves telling that story because they were like, wow, those monkeys are so dumb. And it's like, no, there was a reason why they were stopping the monkey from climbing the ladder. I think the lesson I took as a young person was that, so they were just doing it just because, and the hose wasn't even there anymore. Well, they could get the fruit now. And it's like, no. There was always a reason behind it. There is a risk in if a temporary problem results in a long-term tradition, for sure. But then you have the inverse problem I think we're facing now, where traditions that were created for sustained long-term problems that we don't understand are now coming back because we don't understand why we built the things we built.
Yeah.
A really simple example is police, right? We build police departments for dealing with crime. We have officer friendly throughout the years, the trope of the good cop. And now we're defunding and getting rid of police and getting rid of jails, and crime is getting bad in the cities, and they're denying it's happening. It's like, well, maybe you should realize why we had, like, when we made cash bail, it wasn't some evil guy twirling his mustache being like, I want to take away civil rights. No, there was a reason they were like, we should have cash bail. And then the left was like, hey, this makes no sense. Let's get rid of this. And now everything's getting bad in New York and they're denying it's getting bad.
Yeah, well, again, I hate to just lift this right from Jordan Peterson, but everyone wants to compare the society we live in to the hypothetical utopia in their mind. I've seen this so many times where people will post this image of Henry Ford and they'll go, this guy invented the 5-day, 40-hour work week. And everyone in the comment section is trashing him. And it's like, no, you
remember what it was
idiot. It was
before?
like 80 hours a week before that. That's the whole point is he made it shorter. He required people to do less labor. It's not like nobody had to work and then Henry
Right.
Ford came along and said,
Thanks for watching this clip from the Timcast IRL podcast. Hang out with us live Monday through Friday at 8 p.m. and become a member over at timcast.com for uncensored, members-only shows exclusive. Thanks for hanging out, and we'll see you all next time.